What's up everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be having a look at my VIP section in my Discord. For as little as $14 a month, you can get access to these services, which include me checking out your files, one custom garment every week that's decided from the community of VIPs. And today what we're going to be doing is having a look at RM. He's looking at getting these pants designed, so I said I'll help him out and include it in this week's video. So this is the process on how to do it. I'm going to be creating it in CLO3D and then texturing it in Substance, and then after that going into Blender and doing a final export. So let's get into it. To get access to the VIP section, just join my Discord, go to join VIP. You can click on this link, and then as you can see, from as little as $14 a month, you can get a VIP role in my server and get these cool features. So the first thing we're going to do is start in CLO3D. Let's open up and import an avatar. From here, go to your polygon tool and create a basic shape on either side of the avatar for your legs. So I'm just going to create a shape like this. We're then going to click on our pattern that we've created and say symmetric pattern to create the right side, and then we're going to use our smooth curve tool to just create a curve around the groin area. So those are going to be the front of our denim pants. We can then click on the left side again and press Ctrl C to copy and Ctrl V to paste. Now this is going to go on the back side, so let's adjust it in our 3D window and bring it like that. We can then do the same thing again. We're going to use a symmetric pattern to create a symmetric version of that. Now our back must be different to our front, so what we're going to do is we are going to slightly adjust the front and also the back. And for our back section, we're just going to bring the legs a little bit in, and then for the groin area, we're just going to bring that up. Okay, so that's our basic shape. We can then press in on our keyboard to use our sewing tool, and what we can do is go into our 3D viewport window and just connect these. Make sure you have clicked and the lines have been applied, and then I'm going to go back to 2D window and just connect these as well, as it is easier. And then let's connect our groin area and bunda section. And then I like to use your basic circumference. Then we click once in the front, and then we're going to click twice in the back. And then we have a line which we can connect our pants to so they don't fall down. So we're going to select attach to measurement, and we're going to click that line so that our garment sticks straight onto our avatar when we press simulate. So let's go press simulate. As you can see, some of the parts have been attached to that line, but others haven't. So let's just redo that again. So we're going to click attach to measurement and just make sure it is all good. So now that we have our basic shape, what we can do is start making the legs a little bit wider. So we're just going to go back to our reference. So the legs are quite wide, and it looks like a tight fit at the top, loose around the bottom. So let's work on that. So we're going to bring out both sides of the legs. So click on your bottom back left and your front and just drag those out. And then we can just bring us to the side and press simulate, just so we have a little bit more leg room. And then I'm going to continue extending these until I'm happy. And you'll see that it does start to get like pretty sharp over here. This is because we need to create an angle. So we're going to do this for both sides. Let's just bring this up a tad bit. I'm not using exact measurements here, so this is purely up to your discretion what you want to do. From here, you'll notice that because we are on a textured surface and not a thick textured, you can notice the normal. So you never want to see gray on the outside. So what we're going to do for this is click on both, right click and say flip normal, and it should quickly flip that. And now we have our normals on the right side. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is work on our detailing. So going back to this, there is a line on the side like this. There's quite a lot of puckering around the bottom, waist, and most of the stitching area. So let's work on that. So what I'm going to do is go to fabric and change my fabric type. So in physical properties, sorry about this, active windows, we're going to go to preset and hit custom and look for denim raw. This is just going to give us a more realistic shape. And then I'm going to adjust these corners again. Now you'll notice that the backside has flipped. This is because we flipped our normals. So just take that into consideration. Going to bring those up. Now we're starting to get some better shape. For the backside, I am going to bring this in a tad bit and then bring the top section in. So I'm not an expert in pattern making, so my patterns might not be 100% correct, but this is just how to make them look good digitally, I guess. So from here, we're going to create a waist belt section. So let's click on both sides, the back and the front. We're going to click offset pattern, offset as internal, and make this about 40 millimeters. Measuring with 50, and click OK. And you'll see that we have created some sort of belt line. We can then click on these again and say cut and sew, and this will just separate this. Now what we're going to do is, just to fix this pointy section here, we're going to use our smooth curve tool. We're going to use our edit curve tool just to create some shape there and fill that out. Looks a lot better. And then we can cut and sew these. So let's click on both of these. You'll notice it selects everything. We're going to right click and say cut and sew, and that should separate our patterns. Make sure you've done it to the back, and then we can start working on belt loops. So for the belt loops, you kind of have to all these unless you have the pattern itself, but I like to use the rectangle tool to make around about a 15 by say 55 loop. So this is just a little bit longer than our belt section, so that it has some leeway. And then what we can do is line it up like this. Just going to bring it a little bit to the side, and then we can use the sewing tool. I'm going to be using the free sewing tool, so I pressed M on my keyboard. You can go up to the top here and use the tool here, and then let's just connect them like this. Press M again and right click and say superimpose over, and then we should have our first belt loop. Now going back to our reference, the belt loops were just outside the pockets. I'm going to bring these in quite a bit. Make sure you select the right sewing, and we're going to resimulate, and just like that we're good to go. Now let's do the same thing for the other side. So I'm going to click on this pattern and say copy, and then mirror paste. This should place it in the exact same spot that you wanted it, opposite side. So from here I'm going to use the free sewing tool again, and just using line of sight. I'm going to bring this out a bit, and then we're going to free sew. We're going to free sew this straight. Then using the free sewing tool, we're going to sew this onto our garment and hit simulate. Cool, awesome, that looks good. So because we haven't changed any of our particle distance, you'll notice that it starts looking quite pixelated here. So what we can do is we're going to select everything, and it is on by default to 20, so I'm going to change this to about 8. Now you don't have to do this, it also depends on your PC, but as you can see, once you run that simulation, your creases and everything start to look a ton better. So from here, what we're going to do now is we're going to work on the pockets. So I'm just going to place these roughly where I think they are, and we're going to use our internal polygon line tool to create our pockets, and we have a basic shape there. Now to make sure these are touching, we're going to click on this point and say extend trim to pattern outline, and this will just make sure that it isn't hanging over it and it's not inside of our pattern outline. Now let's go back there. We can see that there is quite a little bit of curve here. So from here, what we're going to do is use our smooth curve tool to create that. And then I'm going to bring this down slightly like so and adjust that curve. And then let's open this up again, and then let's bring this whole thing up a tad bit, and then just make sure once again that it's to your pattern outline. Okay, so those look like some pretty good holes to work with. Now to do your pants, pockets, what I normally do is I create a basic shape and then I cut and sew it. So once it's cut and sewn, we now have something separate to work with, 2 different layers. And then from here, what I normally do is delete the sewing in the front and then extend this section of the pattern. So we're going to say offset pattern outline, extend it by about 15 millimeters. Make sure extend is on, and then create internal line and hit OK. Now what you'll notice is when we go back to our sewing that nothing has been sewn elsewhere. So this is pretty helpful. And then what we can do is on our actual pants, on the outside, we're going to create another pattern, but it's going to be an internal line of 15 millimeters and hit OK. And then we can use our free sewing tool to sew these together like so. And then when we hit simulate, we now have kind of like a little flap going, but because we haven't set our sub layers, there's a little bit of an overlapping issue. So let's go to set sub layer tool and make sure that the front of our garment is over the pants pocket, and on this side we have some sewing issues. So let's press B on our keyboard to remove the sewing, and then we're going to do free sewing tool once more and just sew this up like that. And then we can also sew this little section here just to make sure everything is good and aligned. And let's do the same for the other side, and then we can hit simulate, and we now have that little overlap that we needed. So it's almost faking the pockets. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and change the color of this fabric. This is just so it's easier to see it. There's no other reason, because we're going to be doing textures and substance. So going back to the garment, as I said earlier, the buckle loops on the inside, on the outside of the pockets. So we're going to go and adjust that again, because as you can see, they're quite on the inside. So let's make sure that's selected and just put it on the outside of the pockets. Do it to both sides, just bring it out a bit. And I'm gonna have to resew this because it's got attached to the wrong section. And then hit simulate, and those are almost on the outside. Let's bring it out even more. It's good. I think I'm happy with how that looks. Let's adjust it a little bit more and hit simulate. Okay, perfect. Okay, we've done the pockets in the front now. Now going back to the design, you can see those lines on the side. So what we're going to do is use our internal polygon tool to create these. Let's drop those down. Now that isn't so big, so let's just bring these out, bring it up. That looks cool. And then I'm going to copy this and paste it on the other side, on the back side, just so that we have a similar shape. And it should align with this. It might be a little bit different. So you can see there's a slight offset. So what we're going to do is right click on our point and extend pattern to outline, and that should connect. Then we're going to do the same for the bottom. Okay, so we've got that little triangle section going. I don't know what the correct term is for it, but let's cut and sew this now so that we get some detailing there. And then from here, what we're actually going to do is just to make this like a almost one piece of fabric, because essentially that's what it is. I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to press B on our keyboard, and then we're going to right click on the line of this triangle pattern, and we're going to merge it. This will just create, as you can see, it's created one piece of fabric. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, merge, and then we can just bring these together a bit, and then right click and say delete all baselines, or just get rid of that line. And now what we can also do is edit the curvature of this. So we're going to go to smooth curve. Just go straight across, then click on this line and just bring it up like that. And then we're going to do the same thing for the other side and hit simulate. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool. Let's just bring these out a bit. Okay, so from here, looking back at our pattern, we're just going to assume what the back looks like. I'm assuming that there is some big back pockets. I'm not going to be doing the detailing on the left pocket here. I'm going to leave that as is. But before we go to the back, let's do our zipper. So for the zipper, what I normally like to do is, depending on how long the pants are and how low the groin area is, we're going to use our internal polygon tool to create basic shape. Now you'll notice that because we have symmetric pattern on, it's created on both sides. So we're going to have to remove the symmetric pattern. So let's click on this pattern, right click and say remove linked editing. This will allow us to make changes on that side without affecting the other side. So let's recreate that rectangle, and then what we're going to do is use a smooth curve tool again to just create a basic loop. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut and sew this and just make sure that there is a separation there, and we are pretty much locked in. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. What I do want to do now is the back side. So let's go to the back. We're going to use our internal rectangle tool to create a basic shape, and now you'll see it is skew. That's because we need to align it with our pattern. So that looks pretty good. I like the size of that. Now once again, for the pockets, we're going to cut and sew these, and I like to place them on the outside of my pattern like so, and then we're going to click on both of these and say layer clone over. Now this will do all the sewing for us. So if we pull it out here, you can see that all sides are sewn, but we don't want that. So we're going to press B on our keyboard to delete these, and then we're going to hit simulate. So we just deleted the sewing at the top of the pockets. So that will allow there to be like a little opening here, which I'm happy with. Okay, so looking at these, I'm pretty happy with how it looks. One thing I do want to do is just remove the measurement that we attached in the beginning. So we're going to go to edit measure and just click on these and then press delete. Now when we go back to simulation, we can see that our pants are sitting much better. So last but not least, we need to add some more loops. So I'm going to add 4 more loops, 1 on the side and then 1 at the back, and then finish it off from there. Okay, so let's select both of these loops. We're going to press copy and mirror paste and just paste it like so. Then we can select these. In our 3D window, we're going to bring them straight back and rotate them by 180 degrees and then I'll line them up with our pants. Once that is done, we can then sew these on. So let's use our free sewing tool to bring these to where we think they should be. And what we're going to do is sew these straight on like this. Now I have put them on the wrong side, so we can fix that now. And then we're going to select both of these, right click and say superimpose over, and just like that, it should be good, and hit simulate. Okay, so we have those back buckles. Now let's do the side ones. So let's click this. We're going to just click this loop. We're going to say copy and paste, and then I'm just going to reposition it in the 3D window like so. And I'm going to guess where it's going to be aligned. So let's do it about here and hit simulate. As you can see, when you press Shift A, it's on the wrong side again. So we need to superimpose this over. So right click and say superimpose over, and it'll go straight to the other side. And then we can copy, mirror, paste this so it goes to the other side. And then what we're going to do is sew these on the other side and hit simulate. Let's press Shift A to bring our avatar back, and just like that, we have our denim pants. Now it might look very basic at the moment, but this is where it gets fun. So let's make sure all of these are at least 8 in particle distance. Select all and change that. I'm going to change my loops to around about 5 just because they are a lot smaller, and hit simulate. And then last thing that I do want to do is just create some puckering lines. So let's go and do that now. So we're going to use the puckering tool, segment puckering, and just put these pretty much everywhere where you want them to be. So I'm going to put them all the way on the bottom. You can see that they start to form here, and then I'm going to do it on triangles on the inside and the outside, as well as the inside of the leg. And then going up to the pants, we're going to do them on the buckles, top and bottom. Groin area just on the left side for the groin area, and then for our zipper area, I'm just going to do it on the right. Let's do it in our pocket area. Don't forget to do it on both sides. That looks pretty good. And then let's do it on our pockets at the back, and then on our bunda area, our belt, and then we're going to do it at the top of the loops and the bottom of the loops. Now when we go back, one thing I do want to do is join the middle section. So like we did with the triangles, we're going to click on this segment sewing section and say merge, and this will just join that. And I'm going to use our smooth curve tool to just smoothen this out, and same for the bottom, just smoothen that out and simulate, and that looks much better. And then I'm going to do that to the back side as well. So let's press B on our keyboard, right click and merge, rotate this a tad bit, and then we're going to use our smooth curve tool again just to create better connection. And then right click and say delete all baselines. And then I do want to add a little bit of a lip around the zipper area. So we're going to click on our zipper section and say layer clone over, and then we're going to delete this inner sewing piece and hit simulate. And just like that, we have the zipper section. And then don't forget to add your puckering like you did before, and I've also added it on the outside now. Next thing I'm going to do is create a line down the back that goes to the center of the garment like so, and let's just adjust this, make it a little bit higher, straighten it out a bit, and then we can use our extension to pan and outline just to make sure that it's hitting those spots. And then I'm gonna cut this centerpiece, and then I'm gonna extend trim to pattern internal line, and then we should have that same thing applied to both sides, and then we can cut and sew this like so. And then we're gonna add some puckering to that as well, just on the top side, and let's simulate. Just a little bit of extra detail that we have. Okay, next thing I want to do is create an internal line along the bottom. So we're going to select the bottom of our pants, and then we're going to say offset as internal line. We're going to make the number of offsets 2, and the distance for all is going to be 15 millimeters. And then we can right click and cut and sew this. Just going to give us some extra detailing along the bottom, and then we need to re-add our puckering in. So I'm going to do this just to the bottom of each section, like so. And then we need to redo the sides of this triangle piece. And the last thing that we're going to add is just a little line along the inside to almost fake that connection with the button. So we can use our internal line tool and just draw that straight down. See that it's pretty much in the front, so we can extend trim to pattern outline, and then from here we're going to cut and sew this, and then we're going to remove this by pressing B on our keyboard and delete sewing line, and we're going to right click and say offset pattern outline, set this to about 40, which is almost the same width as the bit area. We're going to create an internal line and press OK, and then this is going to be sewn to the other side. So we're going to press N on our keyboard to use the sewing tool and sew that in, and then we're going to press M for our free sewing tool and just sew the top and bottom together. And then we need to use the set sublayer tool to make sure that the right side is above the left side. So let's set that and we can simulate. And then we almost have like a fake connector there. This is going to be where our button sits. And then we just need to redo this puckering along the bottom. Okay, I'm going to add some puckering to the buckle area, and then we should be pretty much good to go. Let's just add some more puckering on the inside and then the bottom below our pockets, just to make sure that that's set up, as well as the back of our pants. Cool. And then also along the lines of our pockets, and now we should be good to go. Okay, so the next step here is just to make sure our UV is aligned. So we're going to UV editor. As you can see, it's a little bit messed up. So we're going to reset UV to 2D arrangement. Right click to do that, and then we're going to make sure our front is in our first square, which is 0, and then our back is in the second square. So what I do like to do is just to ensure that nothing is overlapped, we're going to leave some spaces between pattern. So you can just do this by selecting and moving it around like so, and then the same for the back. Just make sure when you're editing your UV that you don't rescale any of these, because it will mess up everything when you start texturing. Let's just rotate this a slight bit and bring this in, and we can put this next to this. Okay, and we can select everything and press shift on our keyboard to scale it down, and just make sure nothing is sitting outside of the box for both the front and the back. Reposition it, and then I'm just going to set it up in the middle. Now there are different ways of doing UVs. This is just my preferred method. I know some people like stacking it, but I just like it like this because I can see what I'm working with. It's pretty straightforward. So let's save that, and the next thing we're going to do is export everything. So first thing we're going to do is, because we're in our UV editor now, is go to our normals, and then when you zoom in you can see the puckering there. So to make this more intense, what we're going to do is go to our puckering on the top right here, select this. We're going to go to our normal map and increase the intensity. As you can see, I'm going to set it to about 25. Okay, once you've done that, we can export this. So let's click on bake on the top here, little camera thing. We're just going to export our normals. So you can call it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it VIP week 001. Replacing it's not an issue. And we're just going to select normals. And then we're going to keep the settings as is. So 496. Full texture seams is going to be 4, and we can hit OK. Once that's complete, we can now export this as an OBJ. So we're going to go export OBJ, and we're going to call this VIP week 1, and we're going to call it thick. Make sure to label it thick. You'll see why now. So in our export OBJ settings, deselect avatar, and we're going to click thick, and then unified UV coordinates, and then keep everything as is. Set your scale to M and hit OK. Next thing we're going to do is export a thin version. So we're going to export OBJ, and let's call this thin. We're going to deselect avatar, make sure thin is selected with weld, and then keep everything as is and hit OK. From here you can save this, and we can now close CLO3D. We're then going to open up Blender and set up a basic file. So I'm just going to go file, import OBJ, and add the thin version in here. So we're going to import our thin version, zoom in, and we're going to change the material name. So we're going to call this VIP week 01, and this is going to be called fabric. Okay, from here we can export this. So we're going to go export OBJ, find the folder you want to export it to. I'm going to export it to open files. Because we're exporting the thin version, we're going to make sure it's labeled thin, and then blend export and say selected only. Okay. From here we can save this. This is going to be the file we're going to be working in going forward after we've textured in the Substance Painter. So we can close this and open up Substance Painter now.